Hello, I started the stream. We'll wait a couple of minutes before we start the service. We still have, I think last week we had about a dozen people watching live while we were on. Not last week, week before, last week we were here. I'm sorry, go.
I was going to say that I saw the sign out there that said, I can't pronounce it. It's Unitarian.
Uh-huh.
I forgot the word.
Universalist.
Unitarian Universalist.
Yeah. So we actually rent the space from them.
Oh,
We're not a project of the UU Church. They make the space available to us.
Oh, okay. So this is like a separate area that you guys just use.
Yeah, well, it's their fellowship room on a normal Sunday.
And you kind of
Yeah.
Singing Bell song, the song is in Smyrna, the Unitarian Universalist. Michael King does his meditation.
Right.
One in Mormon.
Right. And Brevard Men's Center meets at a Unitarian Church in Merritt Island. There's also what's it called? UUBF, Unitarian Universalist Buddhist Fellowship. Yeah, which to be a member, you just have to have some sort of an affiliation with the Unitarian Universalist Church. And so we're in it. They don't do anything. They don't send out newsletters or anything like that. Somebody said, "Hey, I got the list of UUBF members in your audit." It's like, oh, okay. So, which is fine. It's good. So. Well, let's go ahead and start, shall we? Everybody get programs? Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Gotcha, atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. Please stand for the incense offering. 3 bows. The fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present with us. It fills our sacred space, guards our minds from wrong thinking. The fragrance of this incense unites us with virtue, mindfulness, and wisdom. We offer it on behalf of all beings. Be seated. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I go to the Buddha for refuge. Being one with the Buddha, I resolve to each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for refuge. Being one with the Dharma, the gates of Dharma are manifold. I vow to enter them all. The goal of wisdom is ever beyond. I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for refuge. Being one with the Sangha, in the spirit of universal fellowship, and as a member of the Sangha, I pledge to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. The Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near or far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those I have hurt in body be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. We're going to do a 20-minute silent meditation. Do you have a meditation practice?
I do not.
Okay. Would you like some instruction?
Sure.
Okay. So, really good. There's a million ways to meditate, but I generally suggest meditate on the breath. So just find a place where it's fairly easy to feel the breath. Tip of the nose is good. The belly is good. Center of your chest works for some people. I like the pit of the stomach personally. And to start, just take about 3 deep breaths, really kind of relax into them. Let your abdominal muscles be relaxed so your belly is soft. So your diaphragm can move, the lungs can feel and empty. And then just let your breath settle into a comfortable rhythm. Um, and focus on keep your attention on your out breath. The breath generally, but it kind of focusing on the out breath helps anchor your awareness there. You can focus on just the sensation of breathing if you want. Um, if your mind is kind of restless, you can count your breaths. So breathe in, just breathe out, think one, silently, just in your mind. Breathe up to 10, and then start over. So just count, you'll get up to several hundred, but you're really thinking about what you go after this is over and stuff like that. So count to 10. If you find that your attention has wandered a whole lot, which it often, is very common, it will, then just take 3 nice deep breaths again, recenter your awareness on the breath, and start over. Questions? Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now, and reciting the sutras, training the mind. Great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great Master Sakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting three treasures, to the peace of the world, the peace of this congregation, the strength and sound practice with members, to the restoration and health of the natural world, its waters, plants, and creatures, and to all efforts in its service with gratitude. May we all realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukha jivino katam punya phalang maham sabe bhagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share in the blessings that spring from the good we have done. I was just looking to see if anybody online had said anything I needed to know. I should get one of you guys to monitor it on your phone or something. But it's right there, I can look at it. So, I was thinking about thinking. Oh, Thomas, do you know how to work that slide? Can you? There you go. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyway, I was thinking about thinking for some reason. I can't remember why the subject came up, but about thoughts and, what Buddhism says about thought and that sort of thing. And it happened that I just gave a talk Sunday about right resolve. And the reason I talked Sunday about right resolve is the second factor of the Eightfold Path. And I had previously talked about the first factor. So I thought, well, I just keep rolling. But then after I did it, I thought, what, I want to come back to this because for one thing, it's a good topic. It's one of these things that we can look at, I think, regularly. And I think we can get a lot from. I was at the prison one day, and one of the guys who's a pretty serious Zen student was talking to me about what he had learned basically from me about the stuff that's in the Pali Canon, so the original teachings of the Buddha. And he said, some of that stuff's really useful. I said, yeah, that's what Buddhism's for. It's supposed to be useful. You use this to live a better life. And this is one of those areas, I think, that if we look at it, when you read about the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, as you are probably doing in your religious studies course, yeah, it can seem very abstract at first, but then, when you kind of figure out, all right, how do I take this teaching and use it to live differently? Then it really, it is very useful stuff. So, Rene Descartes said, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And then some other philosopher, contemporary as in early 20th century, and I can't remember now who it was, said something along the lines of, I am aware that I think, therefore I am human. Which is kind of an interesting thing to think about. The whole idea of mindfulness is to be aware of what the mind is doing, and when the mind is thinking, what is happening with those thoughts? What are they doing with us, and what are we doing with them? So when we first start to practice Buddhism, we have to use the mind that we have. A lot of people say, I'll practice. I'd like to meditate, but my mind is restless. Well, okay, that's why you meditate. You learn how to deal with a restless mind, learn how to deal with a drowsy mind, and so on. So we have to work with what we've got. And the mind tends to have kind of an inertia. We have a tendency to keep doing what we've been doing because karma creates more karma. If you do the law of karma says if you do a good thing, you get a good result. You do a bad thing, you get a bad result. Well, if you do certain negative things, you're going to probably continue to do those negative things. The best example I can think of is an addiction to something like smoking. Every time you do it, you perpetuate a habit that's not very healthy. And it's the same way with, the other things that we do in life, the things that are based on greed, anger, and ignorance, misunderstanding are, they tend to self-perpetuate. If we do them, we tend to continue to do them. And the way to reverse that is to not do them, and then to do the opposite of those things. So do a good thing, you get a good result. So we can use the mechanism of habit to create a mind that's more oriented towards true happiness and well-being. So anyway, if you talk to the average person about a bad habit and say, somebody says, I want to break a bad habit. Well, what do you do? Well, I'll stop doing it. Okay, that's part of the process. But what are you going to do instead? And that's kind of important. So if somebody said, well, I want to stop watching so much TV. Okay, well, what are you going to do after dinner besides sit down in front of the couch? Have a plan for that. And it's kind of the same thing with spiritual practice. When you meditate, when I gave the meditation instruction, I didn't say, okay, just sit down and don't think about anything for the next 20 minutes. Because that doesn't work out very well. What do you do instead? Okay, here's an object of meditation. Settle your mind on this object of meditation. And that's how you train the mind, is by keeping it on that object. So we don't just stop our thoughts. We find something to concentrate on. The mind settles down and becomes more peaceful. So the Buddha understood how the mind works. And that's reflected in the Eightfold Path, where he starts out with these first two factors that have to do with cultivating wisdom. The first factor is usually translated as right view or right understanding. And it means knowing what stress and suffering is and what causes it. And if you know what it is and what causes it, then you know how to stop it. So the second factor is sometimes translated as right thought or right intention. I think right resolve is probably the best translation. And here's how he explained it. The Buddha said, what is right resolve? Being resolved on renunciation, on freedom from ill will, on harmlessness. So I think this is a two-part process. The Buddha was talking about this to some monks about his spiritual quest and the path of practice that he took. And he said, the thought occurred to me, this was when he was just a bodhisattva, before he was the Buddha. He said, why don't I divide my thinking into two sorts? Those thoughts that give rise to harm for myself and others, and those that lead to peace and happiness. And he said, I saw thinking imbued with sensuality, with ill will, and with harmfulness as one, and thinking imbued with renunciation, with goodwill, and as harmlessness as the other. And he said he had watched his thoughts carefully and noticed that what thoughts led to his own disturbance, to suffering from others, or both. And he started to let go of those thoughts. So right resolve starts with this, the term I used here is renunciation, really with letting go. You set your mind on letting go of things that have been causing you trouble. It will help if when we give up something, to recognize that sometimes these things can feel good to us, but we're giving them up in order to get something better. So renunciation means letting go of something that we might like a whole lot, but in order to get something of much greater value. There's a teacher I like a whole lot, Tanasaru Bhikkhu, who did an essay on this once called Trading Candy for Gold. He says, if you had a pound of chocolate, and chocolate's pretty good, you like chocolate, but if somebody says, I give you a pound of gold for that, you do that pretty quickly. I said this once in a meeting, and somebody says, yeah, because you get a lot more chocolate with a pound of gold. But that's kind of the way this works. We're letting go of something that might feel really good to us, but we're getting something much more valuable in return. So we have a hard time sometimes letting go of things that our ego wants to cling to. And we may not appreciate the value of what we're going to get in return until we've had a chance to work with it sometimes. We'll often cling to things that are really not working for us, but they're comfortable. Those habits can be very comfortable and can be hard to break, and we may not like them. And we don't know what will happen if we let them go. So what happens if we let go of our anger or our perfectionism? So we have to do what the Buddha did, observe these thoughts and see where they lead, and see how our thoughts cause stress for ourselves and others. And then we can see how nice it would be to get rid of that stress. So I also encounter this idea sometimes in our society, if we give in to our urges, we're permissive, or we should go the other extreme and repress them. But Buddhism is a middle path. It's not a compromise. It's a whole other way of looking at things. It's a third way of looking at things. There's no, you can't do this or you can't do that. You realize what is harmful. Because it's harmful, you let it go. So when we start to practice, we'll sometimes see that being angry or hateful is harmful, potentially to the person we hate, but we start to recognize it harms our minds for sure. And being resolved on harmfulness and on freedom from ill will means planning to refrain from certain thoughts and actions. But on the other side, there's things you can do. So to be free from ill will, you cultivate goodwill, like we did in the metta prayer just a little while ago. There's other things you have to bring along for right resolve to work. You need right view. You need to know what's going to lead to happiness and what's not. You can't resolve your mind on peace or well-being if you don't understand where those things come from. If you're thinking true happiness or freedom comes from other people, for example, then you may spend a lot of energy judging other people. I was thinking about this just the other day. I was going through downtown, so right over here, and I stopped at a light, and this guy was, there was a guy and his wife and kids were crossing in the crosswalk. And there was a guy who made a right turn across the crosswalk right in front of this family, which you're not supposed to do. It's illegal, and they've probably gotten a ticket if a cop had seen him, and it was the wrong thing to do. And understandably, the guy with the family was annoyed, we might say. And so he said to the guy in the pickup, "Hey, you bad person, your driving is really unskillful." But not in those words. He used much stronger language than that. Well, the guy in the pickup rolled down his window and said, "Thank you so much for your judgments. I didn't realize that I was such a bad driver. And I learned so much from listening to you. Here's $5 for your trouble." Of course, he didn't do that. No. And you know, actually, and thankfully, they didn't get into a fist fight there in the middle of Woodland Boulevard. The guy just drove off. But my point is that judging others is a generally thankless job. Nobody thanks you for your judgments of them. Nobody pays you for it. You know, it doesn't pay very well. So this is where things like right effort and right mindfulness come in, which we need in order to really practice right resolve. It's very natural for those thoughts. "Hey, you jerk, your driving sucks," you know, or whatever the guy said. It's natural for those thoughts to arise. But there's a difference between the arising of thoughts and thinking. Does that make sense? Thoughts come up, but we get to decide what happens in response to them. So when a thought arises, we can apply mindfulness of that, being aware of what comes up, and then being careful of what thoughts we nurture. Our life is not going to be made one bit better by dwelling on how inconsiderate some other driver can be. If, you know, I mean, we've all encountered bad drivers, and we've all cussed them as they went down the road, I'm sure. And our life is not improved by that in any way. What our life is improved by is letting go of those thoughts when they come up. Now, that doesn't mean of course, that, people should just drive around willy-nilly however they feel like, and that we shouldn't have laws that, govern things like, how you behave around crosswalks and that kind of stuff. But we can't fix everything. So I jumped out of a plane once, or skydived to land. It was one of those tandem jumps. And so I was, any of you ever done one of those? Skydiving? So this is kind of cool. And this technology was actually invented in DeLand, or around skydive DeLand, that used to be, they had to go through a whole lot of stuff to teach you how to jump out of a plane, and then you did it. And then they hoped that you were not so freaked out that you didn't pull the cord or whatever, Now what happens is that an instructor has on the parachute and you're strapped to the instructor. And so the instructor jumps out of the plane and you're kind of along for the ride. It's kind of cool. So there's a place where you kind of stand and wait for the plane to taxi up for you to get in and go jump. And so I'm there, I'm strapped to the instructor, and I see there's a sign there that says, no matter what, go with the flow. And so I said to the instructor, I said, that's good advice, but what does it mean in this context? Why is that sign there? And the instructor said, okay, well, you see there's that windsock over there. So you can see which direction the wind is blowing. So you're supposed to, when you jump out of the plane, and your parachute opens, you're supposed to go into the wind. I think that's right. If you decide to jump out of a plane, ask the instructor. But he said, but sometimes you jump out of the plane and people are going the other direction. If you do the right thing, what you're taught to do, if you go into the wind, you're going to tangle up with somebody and, there's going to be a bad accident. So you go with the flow. So we can't always control our circumstances. Hang on. Had to remove the post. Well, once in a while we get those. Anyway, if we want to live in a happier world, we can do that by developing compassion and goodwill. And part of that is to accept what is. We can only function within our actual circumstances. We can't control the past. We can't control other people. So if we want peace and happiness, we really should resolve to spend our energy developing those things that do lead to peace and happiness. So anyway, thank you for your attention. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
Did you enjoy the jump?
Did I enjoy the jump? I did. Yeah, I actually really did. In fact, so this was a long time ago, and I've kind of forgotten a lot of it. This was probably 2010 or so, and it was for a story I was writing about skydiving, about skydive to land specifically, and the skydiving culture and stuff for the Orlando Weekly. And when I pitched the story to the editor there, she said, it'd be a really good story if you could jump out of a plane. And so I asked if they would do that for me, and they did. I could see where people would really get into it. It wouldn't be it's not something that I feel like doing again, not because it was scary or anything. It just, not really my cup of tea, but it was kind of cool. You jump out of a plane and you're kind of tumbling through the air, and then all of a sudden the parachute's open, and then you're just kind of sitting there in the sky for a while, and then you land. What was cooler, I think, was for me was parasailing. in Daytona Beach. That was kind of fun. You get to enjoy the scenery more and stuff like that. But it was all right. Yeah. And I've met a bunch of skydivers and, the whole competitive skydiving thing and stuff. I could see where that could become something you could spend a whole lot of money on.
Skydiving is expensive.
Huh?
It's expensive to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. If I'd had to pay for it, I wouldn't have done it probably. It's, I think then it was probably $300 for that first dive. And there's people who just go up and jump over and over again. I'm sure they're not paying $300 every time, but the equipment, all of that stuff, and not a criticism. I mean, there's lots of people do things that cost money. There's nothing wrong with that, but yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, just scratching. Okay.
I was going to ask about your the brown.
So this is called a Raksu. Raksu. It's kind of a stand-in for the Buddha's robes. So if you're a Buddhist monk, you typically wear robes. And in Japan, at one point, it was kind of problematic for monks to walk around in robes because one of the emperors, didn't much like Buddhism. And so he had decided that it was okay to kill Buddhist monks if you saw them, if you were a samurai. And so they were, so this became this, if you saw the swordsman coming, you could just hide it. And it's also really practical if you're at a monastery during a retreat and there's work and stuff. So Justice Online said, it's funny, half a plane ride is more expensive than if you took the whole flight. Yeah, that's true. But that's because of the instruction. And we'll miss you, Chris. Have a great time in Thailand. One of the online regulars who actually lives about an hour and a half from here, I think, is going to Thailand for a visit. So anyway, yeah, when you ordain, you sew a robe, which is a big, giant sheet made up of separate pieces. But then for services like this one and stuff, you can just wear this.
What about your beads on your arm?
A lot of different traditions use these for different things. So almost every Mahayana Buddhist monk that I know uses beads in a service or wears them or carries them or puts them around their neck or something. Mm-hmm. There's not any really official thing you do with them, although like I'll use these sometimes. In meditation, I'll chant the Nimbutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, which is a whole other Dharma talk. And I'll use these sort of 108 beads, so I'll do it 108 times.
So it's 108 beads on there, really?
Yeah, 108 plus this bead. 108 is an auspicious number. Right?
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah. All right.
I was going to ask you about earlier when you were reading the verse
Uh-huh.
in the God of Atonement, and then you were making it's not a bell, but what is that called?
The bell.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a bell. Yeah.
It's a bell. So is it like a bowl and like that?
It's a bell. It's just a bell. It's called a case bell. This is a small one. Some places, like if you ever go to White Sands Buddhist Center, they have a huge one. It's just a bell. You'll see some kind of like this referred to as singing bowls. But that's a Tibetan thing. Let's go ahead and do the 4 great vows. And then if you got other questions, I'll hang around and I'm sure other people will be interested in answering your questions. Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Enlightened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Enlightened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Enlightened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it. Friends, I respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us must strive to awaken. Awaken, take heed, do not squander this life. Thank you all very much for coming.
I think I missed that last part. Was it on here? Or was it
No, it's not.
Oh, okay, it's like
Yeah.
a memory thing.
Huh?
It's like in your, like, you have to memorize it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a quote from Zen Master Dogen. And he used to use it to end meetings with. I almost forgot to end the stream. Bye, guys.